This is a test. This is a test of the microphone. Here's the tea on tech, part 4. Being a full-time employee versus a contractor and how I feel about it, basically. Now, getting a full-time job at a tech company is kind of difficult because they want to pick exactly who they need, who has the best talents for the position. And one of the problems it's hard to get a full-time job at a tech company is because of resources. Whenever they hire a full-time employee, it's a commitment for them and they have to put it on their balance sheet and report it to shareholders, etc. All the benefits and stock, etc. Resources turns into headcount for each department. So each department has a headcount where they can hire a certain number of full-time employees. Now there's so much work to do because at tech companies, the size of the company is much smaller than the size of the business. So for example, when I first started working at Airbnb, it was 600 employees, but we had like millions of users. So that's a lot of work to do. And the resources that they have are strained for the amount of work that they need to do. Now, all of this work does lead to burnout, and follow this person for burnout advice, but moving on. So the competition to get a full-time job is pretty stiff. It's pretty difficult, but they also hire tons of contractors and it's just like a 2-year commitment. And they have a big budget for contractors and they're willing to take contractors on to help the full-time employees. And being a contractor versus a full-time employee, as far as the work that you're gonna do, is essentially the same. They just need some extra help, but they can't really make that long-term commitment because their resources are limited. Now, I'm not saying they don't have a lot of resources. These companies are loaded, but whenever they're doing their budget sheets about how much money they're earning versus how many full-time employees that they're employing, they do need to balance their books. So being a contractor pays more money, but you don't have the same benefits as a full-time employee. For example, I couldn't go to the gym that they had at Facebook when I wasn't a full-time employee, but boo-hoo. I will take my money and then go to my own gym. Secondly, usually whenever you're a contractor, you're not actually a contractor as a personal entity or an LLC. You work for another company who contracts your work to them and the company earns money on top of it. So you still have availability to get health benefits and everything that comes with a normal job because you are an actual employee of the company that is contracting the work out to the bigger tech company. Also, finding people takes a lot of work and time. These companies don't have enough resources to find everyone they need. So hiring another company to do all of the onboarding, set up their computer, the initial interviewing really saves time for the companies. Now, one reason why I like contracting is because you're not involved in the should we do this? How should we do this? Maybe a little bit of the how. Or you're just involved in the work. So they come to you and say, we need you to do this. Boom, you're done, killing it, and you go home with a check. Now, if you're a contractor at a tech company, you might feel a little bit less than, but I kind of think that's just, a little bit of imposter syndrome for me personally. If you go in and do a project and kill it, and then for certain meetings, only full-time employees are invited because there's confidential information that is only available to full-time employees. If you're killing a project, your name is out there, but then in these meetings, you're not there, people are going to start to question, oh, wait, why isn't this person here? And then they'll be like, oh, because there's a contractor. And then they'll think, oh, they are essential to this project and essential to this team, so we need to change that right away. So if you do want to go in and be a full-time employee but not have to compete so hard for that full-time employee position, going in as a contractor is a great way to transition to full-time and kind of easier in my opinion. Personally, whenever I worked for Messenger at Facebook, I started, and then within the first 2 weeks, they were like, oh, wait, you're not a full-time employee? And they started to do the process to hire me full-time because I really put in all my all. So full-time employment, let me clarify something. It is an at-will contract, which means the company can let you go for any reason, and also you can leave for any reason. So if you want to be out of there and, just you hate it, you can leave for any reason and you're not contractually obligated to stay, and vice versa. Now, it is hard to kind of fire someone without notice, and they have to show a record of, not so hot performance. But if the company's project, kind of ends and they don't need you anymore or something like that, they can let you go, but you can go too. But with a contract, they are agreeing to employ you for sure for the term of the contract, which I think can be up to 2 years. Essentially, the government doesn't want companies to just hire contractors. They want to have people as full-timers with benefits. So there's a time limit because contractors come to work on a certain project and not just on everything. So if you're comfortable with the fact that, you're employed up until a certain date, I prefer contracting because I know in my mind I will have a job until X versus the full-time employment where they can kind of let me go at any time. Will they? Probably not. When you're hired full-time, you're expected to stick around, but anything can happen. And if you are a contractor and you do want to work full-time or have your contract extended, you'll have those conversations way ahead of time. But if you don't want to keep working there, and let's say you have, 6 months left on your contract, you can start looking for other things. In the meantime, knowing that you're going to be ending your relationship at a natural point and it's kind of no drama. Like they'll reach out to you and say, hey, we'd like you to be full-time or we're not renewing your contract, but that's kind of expected. So I like contracting better, to be honest. And then as far as the 2-week notice thing, it is typical to give 2 weeks, but hey, if it's a toxic situation, get the hell out of there. And if another company or if you work with the company again in the future says like, hey, well, I heard that you didn't give 2 weeks, you can explain the situation to them and say, hey, like it just wasn't good for my mental health and, things weren't so hot and I left. And I can tell you more details about it if you'd like, but usually that'll be enough and they'll understand. Big tech companies have many different departments and each person's experience is very different. So one department might be super awesome and another maybe not so super awesome. It all depends on who you work with and the circumstances of your own situation. But yeah, that's my spiel on full-time versus contract. If you have any questions, I'm always here to answer them. You can join my Slack channel. If you like this video, follow and like. And if you think that someone would benefit from this information, go ahead and share with them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.